Travis is not here yet.
Yeah, no, I don't see Travis.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I believe we are live in
So
both.
we're live on LinkedIn
Mhm.
and on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm checking both of the pages right now. Okay, LinkedIn check, YouTube check. Perfect. Mhm.
Yeah, so because 1 hour is not a lot of time, I think we'll get started. Or can you send Travis a quick note just to be sure he's not having trouble joining? Because now it's gonna be two hosts against only Lloyd. Well, welcome everybody. We know we are live on LinkedIn and on YouTube, and some people are here on Zoom. Thanks for coming. Thanks for spending 1 hour of your Wednesday evening with us. This is Immigrant Techies Network. We are a non-profit organization that is focused on immigrants in tech. So tech careers, tech businesses, people that already know tech from their home countries and want to navigate what it looks like here in Alberta, in Canada as a whole, or those who are new to tech as a whole and just want to, get what this whole buzz about tech is. So we host events, we do programs, we do everything possible to demystify the tech space and to open up the space ecosystem and the careers to newcomers. Not because we are being kind, not just because it's the right thing to do, it's also the necessary thing to do because immigrant talent is full of tech expertise. The immigration system makes sure that people that have some tech or engineering background are ranked higher. So we have a lot of good talent coming in through immigration, which we cannot afford to lose. So part of what we do here is to make sure that people that have the skill set, we need to drive the economy forward, don't get missing, don't fall through the cracks. Welcome, Travis. Yeah, I was just giving a quick overview of Immigrant Techies, our nonprofit organization focusing on immigrants in tech, both for careers and startups as well. So I am Wunmi, I'm the executive director, and Nova is our technical program manager. He wears many other hats as well. So yeah, welcome to the show. Welcome, Lloyd and Travis. So yeah, our guest, Lloyd Summers, co-founder and CTO from Red Iron Labs.
Yes.
And we have Travis Gibson, business development manager from Snowden. Yeah, I got it. Yeah. So Nova is here to co-host with me in part because I don't speak games. I kind of just, yeah. So he's here to nerd out on on that aspect of the conversation. But before we get too nerdy, can we meet you, Lloyd? Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how does XR come into your world?
Sounds good. And I guess I can go first. So my
Yes.
name's Lloyd. I'm the technical co-founder at Red Iron. We've been doing VR and games. We work outside of games, though. We do a lot in healthcare, industrial, government contracts. We work with Calgary Police, Calgary Fire. We have some stroke software for helping people recover from strokes using video games and VR. And yeah, we've been doing that for about almost going on to 10 years now. I guess so 2016, January, we founded. And I'm the techie geeky guy. So my job is making sure all the code is there and we're doing all the things we commit to and that we're delivering stuff. And right now we're working on a video game called Murder Bears, which is cartoon bears that run around and kids get to destroy each other and have fun. And it's cute and it's carnage. And that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. Thanks, Lloyd. Travis?
Perfect. Yeah, I'll be short and sweet. My name is Travis. I'm the Senior Business Development Manager at Snowden Studios. Snowden Studios is a co-development studio in the gaming industry, which is just a fancy way to say we work on other people's games in terms of their IP and their titles. So some ones that you may recognize, we worked on Starfield with Bethesda quite recently. We're actually the one studio that is behind Fallout Shelter at the moment for Bethesda. We've worked with Turn 10 on the Forza series, Blizzard on Diablo, kind of list goes on and on. My role specifically within the studio is the fun part about the business development stuff. So I'm not skilled in code or art or design. So I get the business conversations and then I hand it off to what I classify are the really talented individuals on my end to actually make the games.
Yeah, let me just zero in on that right there, Travis. So from a business perspective, why should people care about extended reality, about gaming as a whole? I mean, we know from an entertainment perspective why we should care, but from a business perspective, what's the promise?
Gaming itself is a massive industry. It's still an industry that is growing, and by the whole scheme of things, is still very, very young. It's kind of why we're seeing a little bit of a pulling back with the industry right now, and you see a lot of layoffs and a lot of companies trying to correct and figure out what they want to do, because it's an evolving technology that has changed rapidly. It's employed a lot of people, and it's getting to the point where it probably can't continue to do double-digit growth like it did in like the 2010s. So we're kind of at an interesting place here. But at the heart of it, games is entertainment, and whether you classify yourself as a gamer or not, I know you mentioned you don't speak game. Everybody games to some element, whether it is just on your mobile, your iPhone, your Android, playing games while you're on the train, whether it is a console or a PC, or building your PC, or just simply even board games or just games that you play in the backyard. Everybody plays games for fun. So the gaming industry in a nutshell really speaks to everybody on some formal level.
And then there's also the aspect of gamifying other experiences as an added value to your business. So is that part of what you do as well?
Yeah, so gamifying's interesting. You can gamify a lot of things that sometimes may or may not need it, but sometimes it could be really, really fun.
Right.
Good example of this is probably Wii Fit, like a number of years ago, right? Gamifying exercise. And there's people that exercise, they lost weight, they got healthy, and they still have thousands of days worth of streak because they gamified something that makes sense. So there's a kind of a catch-22. You don't want to over-engineer and over-gamify things that don't need to. Just like in today's world, you don't need to make games solely for the purpose of trying to drive revenue and drive customers. There's still a big pillar of finding the fun and making sure that games are fun first and foremost, because that's why we play games.
Thank you, Travis. So Lloyd, why should people care about extended reality? You didn't touch on it, that it's beyond entertainment. So if you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like going into games, I'm thinking of like the ESA, the Entertainment Software Association Canada. I think they're tracking almost 1,000 studios, 32,000 employees across Canada, bringing in just over 5.5 billion in revenue in games. And so what's interesting about games is you build it once and it's consumable, but it's not like cutting down a tree. You cut down a tree, you can only make so many pieces of paper. A game can be downloaded unlimited times going on decades. And so from an investment perspective, that can be very enticing because you're limited by your reach, not by the product's capabilities, which is very interesting. But from a VR perspective, there's a lot of reasons why it might be good, and there's lots of reasons why it might not. It really depends on the audience. But if you're doing something that's expensive or dangerous or detail oriented, or you just want to be able to really control narrative stories, VR can be a really good fit. A good example would be like stroke recovery. So we have some headsets that we're working on where people bring them home. And so now the doctors can see within a millimeter accuracy how well their hand recovery is doing from home. They can see how long they've been practicing for. And what we're finding is that people are using the simulations about twice as long as they're supposed to because it's fun. You know, you're out trying to find
Yeah.
dinosaurs. You're not like running on a treadmill, and it's just a lot more fun. And I think that escapism and being able to like go away is really fun. And then as a creator, being able to tell a story where you, when they're in VR, they can't look at their phone or get sidetracked like you can with a movie. So you have a responsibility to deliver a really good story. And if you can, it can be really impactful for people because it's like you control everything they see and hear. And it's a really beautiful experience to have that as an art, like as an artist when you're working on it. It's very empowering to be able to, have that much control over what's happening. So yeah, I don't know if I really answered the question.
Oh no, absolutely. There are
Okay.
so very many applications where you can use VR,
Mhm.
AR, all of that. It's been used in many cases to increase accessibility.
Yeah,
So
big
even for people that probably won't have the opportunity to access a service, you can, simulate an environment for them.
Yeah.
It's just like any technology, you can use it for you can use it to exclude or to include, to empower or to
Mhm.
disenfranchise. It's just there's a lot of good that it can be used for, and there's a lot of ways it can also go wrong.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you make a good example. Like we're working on a series of books with Elder Sheldon Firstrider, and using AR, you can hold up the phone and change the language to not just Blackfoot, but like traditional Blackfoot, modern Blackfoot, and hear different pronunciations, like something you couldn't normally do with a book. And it's just incredible to like have a tool at somebody's fingertips that they just click and they can access something in their home language that they might
Yeah.
not be able to otherwise.
Yeah, like I have a couple of points to mention. Like I have been just listening and taking notes. First of all, Lloyd mentioned that he's hands-on with code, which is very exciting. Like as a CTO and founder, like he's a CTO and a founder, and that reminds me of like someone like Elon Musk, like who is like always inside the engineering teams. Like you're not just a founder, you're deep inside the code and you know what's happening. And that's rare between founders, and that's very valuable. Like from my point of view, that's very good. And like about those like usages of AR and XR in real world, I just thought of Flight Simulator by Microsoft. And like I know that not necessarily, I don't know if this was the product or there was a similar product that pilots actually used for their initial trainings, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it can be extremely serious, like combining like physical stuff and like virtual reality stuff, right?
Yeah, and then the hard part though, and this is where somebody like Travis is really important, is figuring out how to sell that to somebody.
Oh yeah,
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
at the end of the day,
Yeah.
whatever you do, if you don't sell it, you're just sitting
Yeah.
alone.
And we're really bad about that in Alberta. We have so many companies here that build something in silence. They don't, and they don't properly staff or build themselves up for marketing and business development. And what happens, and we saw this, we went through a healthcare incubator with 10 other companies, and all the other 9 companies, one of the founders said, I've been working on this for 3 years and no doctor will buy it. And my thought is like, why have you been working on this for 3 years without a doctor? And like
Yeah,
a BD person would stop you and say, hey, let's
Right.
make sure somebody wants to buy this before
yeah,
we
like
spend
don't
3
get me wrong. I'm amazed by what you do, but I prefer business development like
Yeah.
every time over being a technical person. Like I have
Yeah.
put business development in my LinkedIn title on the top just to catch notice of people. I have been a business developer long, long time ago, but I hope
Yeah.
someday I become a business developer in Canada, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and then like you were talking about like Wunmi, you mentioned the gamifying stuff, and like the perfect example just popped into my head, Duolingo, for learning English. Like that application is basically a game that teaches you like languages, right? So that's a very good
Mhm.
experience. Mm. Perfect. So,
So,
yeah, go ahead.
still, sorry, yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, Lloyd was talking about the way we do in Alberta in terms of, uh, I think it's a some level of conservativeness where we build products here, it's not validated here, it's validated in the US, and then after it's been done there, then Canadians start buying. Like, well, Travis, how does that play in your world? In your world of business development, finding customers, and how does the market itself lend itself to being open to innovation?
It is essentially the $1 million question, or even billion dollar question, right? Especially in kind of my world where co-development is very, very key, and studios are more going the route of keeping their own team lean instead of ballooning to 500 people and then laying people off. They want to use more co-development studios. It's becoming more cost effective to outsource or co-develop from everything from engineering, design, UI, UX. Art has always kind of been one that's really been outsourced in the past, but over the last 15 years, engineering, for example, is getting really, really popular. So it means that companies are using talent worldwide, right? It really is a global industry. And you see so many of these large parent companies, they have studios literally everywhere. Snowden's a good example of this. We belong to a parent company called Keywords. It is the largest service provider in the gaming industry. Anything to do with gaming, there is a studio within Keywords that kind of has that as their niche. And from a bunch of different factors, from interest rates to inflation to just the cost in general to hire talent in North America, it's becoming more attractive for that co-development to kind of go to different areas of the world, which is by itself, it's still very, very good. There's still very talented developers or professionals in other areas of the world. But it just means that Alberta specifically, or any place in Canada, needs a little bit more help to give this the best chance to succeed in terms of the industry. A lot of that comes down to potentially tax credits. I know Alberta had tax credits in the past that went away. Quebec and Montreal specifically, that's why the industry is so large there, is because of tax credits paving that way and making it more affordable to develop products in Canada. Right now, we're kind of have a little bit of an advantage if we're dealing with, let's say, an American studio or American client, at least from my point of view, because of the exchange rate. If they're paying in American, we're technically getting more in Canadian now, so we can actually lower our prices a little bit and still make our margins. So there are advantages here and there, but Alberta specifically, that's kind of why I volunteer to give time back, or I do talks at local shows and kind of show up to local events, is because I want game studios to exist in Alberta. I want to see not just one BioWare, I want to see a few of them. I want to see these projects where we're proud to have a very thriving community, just like Vancouver or just like Montreal in Canada.
And there's been a bit of interest in the entertainment industry as a whole, like for film, some investment in that space. So is it not translating to games? Is there a sequestration? Are they seen as separate or?
So I'll let Lloyd answer this, but I'll go really quickly as well at the same time. There's a ton of in Alberta, specifically Calgary. Calgary's kind of leading the way right now in terms of just tech investment, and a lot of things are really, really exciting coming out of Calgary. But anything with tech typically treats gaming as kind of at arm's length, because the same people that are investing or getting involved in tech aren't necessarily getting involved in gaming, even though they're similar, because they just don't understand it, right? It's one thing to build a SaaS or a software solution or ed tech or whatever. It's a completely different thing to build a hit project or build up a studio.
Totally.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And plus, when you're in a down economy, people are conservative with their money, which doesn't mean they're not spending. It just means they're picking things they're comfortable with. It's like anything. If I have $10, I'm not going to go to a restaurant I've never gone before. I'm going to pick the one I know that has $10, then I can go eat. And so they kind of have that approach. I think what's interesting though, like we have 2 projects on our plate right now that are connected to the film industry and one connected to the drama live theater. And
cool.
there's kind of most people don't know it, but like CMF will, if they've funded a film, they're a lot more likely to fund mixed media based on the film. And it can give the group there an opportunity to extend their offering. So they go to, like there's one film group we're working with, and so we're now part of that proposal. And so when they go to, CBC, they say, here's our film, and here's the game that's going to come with it, and here's this, and here's the companies aligned with it, and gives them a thicker portfolio so they can get a better chance of getting it. So there are funds. It's just, especially in Alberta, we're really bad about not looking beyond the province for what funds are out there.
Yeah.
And CMF
Right.
comes at a risk because you got to pay that back too. So it's not really a grant, it's an investment. And so you got to be prepared for that. And, but there is funding there. It's just, and the Alberta industry is changed, like the film. We've met with a lot of people like Murray, who used to be one of the Alberta film commissioners, and he's been chasing games and VR quite heavily. And so I'm seeing us, we keep working at it as a community, and we're chipping away at these people, and we're getting to the right people, and they're starting to transfer.
Good. That's encouraging.
Yeah.
Nova, did you have something?
Oh yeah, like Lloyd was mentioning that. So I was gonna ask Lloyd about that actually, and also Travis, because like let's say someone like an indie independent company, like a small gaming company, they want to, like, I'm sure there are tons of people like me who are interested in game. They have a community around them, some friends, some knows how to write code, someone knows how to draw a character, someone who knows how to make the music, a storyline, like all the stuff that is involved in making a game. So yes, we can get together, but like, is there any specific trends that like that helps these smaller teams survive and thrive? Like, do you have any like promising trends in mind?
Yeah, and actually what I would say is there's also some local incubators for games that have popped up as of late. This is new. When we got founded, there was nothing. Like, we couldn't even find a marketing person who's worked on a game before. It just wasn't in Alberta. But we're seeing that change. Like, Scaffold Alberta is a government-funded project that is they'll introduce you to publishers and get you working on your pitch. Bow Valley College has an incubator if you can get into that one. They were fantastic. So Ryan over there really helped us perfect how to pitch your game and get people interested, and all of that. And I think the biggest challenge for most game developers in Alberta is we like to work in silence. We're not good at marketing, and we miss that, like, the business creation side, like creating a legal entity, having clean finances, all of that stuff that we absolutely hate to do. But if you don't have those in place and you approach an investor who is interested, they're going to look at that and say, I don't even know who owns the rights to your game. There's nothing in there saying that.
We need more Travis, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, I would say.
It's one of those things where you typically, when I come across like a new company or new project or startup project, they always have a technical person and a creative person, which is awesome. You kind of need one of both. But typically, if you're wanting to do something that's especially more commercially successful, you need somebody with a little bit of business acumen, because if you are just interested in making your, pirate GTA MMO game, whatever passion project you want to work on that is really exciting, you don't really care about balancing the books or making sure that you're tracking your receipts or making sure that your legal entity is even set up properly. That's the quote unquote boring stuff that people bang their heads against the wall all the time. And it's one thing that, especially in gaming, right? We talk about business development. There's not a lot of junior roles for BD in games. Nobody really joins a studio or company as like more of a junior biz dev. They join junior roles as a designer or an engineer, an artist, right? You kind of learn and advance up the ranks like that. 9 out of 10 people that I meet in games that have come from that are in business development, they've built their skill set on the side, and then they found a way to enter the industry at that point. My path in the games is 100% that. At the same time, 10, 15 years working in biz dev, games comes a knocking, and I'm like, oh, heck yes, I'm getting in. And all of a sudden now that's where you're at. So it's a little bit of trying to find somebody with business experience within gaming is obviously key, but I wouldn't always let that be a limiting factor. Business is very universal in a certain sense, regardless what industry you're in.
Yeah, I mean, we have some people that have gone through programs that I know someone in particular that is a game developer. I know someone that was a game illustrator, so she was focused on more on the art side, and now she's also a developer.
Yeah.
So now for these professionals that are looking to apply their skills in the gaming industry, are you saying they have to move to Montreal? Is there is there something for them here in Calgary?
It's one of those things where part of my vision of helping to give back is really trying to bridge that gap between the creative side of the industry and the business side of the industry. There's not much that you can do if, let's say, for example, you want to work for Amazon Game Studios, right? They mandate 5 days in the office. So if you want to work for a company like that, you're going to have to move in order to secure a position. There are positions that you obviously can work remote, and there's more remote studios and willingness over the last 5 years, obviously. But on the business side of things, you need to kind of still understand what advantages somebody in BC or Quebec might have over you. Once again, we're going back to the tax credit conversation here. If a company can have tax credits for employing Joe Smith from Quebec versus you, and you guys have similar skill sets, unfortunately, you're probably going to lose out. So it is a reality that moving may help, but it's not always the perfect solutions in the industry, because unfortunately there's tons of layoffs. There's so many good talented people out there at the moment.
Right.
Competition is very, very thick. It's a good problem to have from the studio side of things, but it just means as an individual or somebody that's looking to get a job or a paid job in games, you're going up against the best of the best, and there's less positions to go around, essentially.
But like the job market is tough. Like I've heard that, like we have chat before for short Travis with each other, and you mentioned that also there. And yeah, I have seen the job market being tough, like with many of our participants in our community, immigrant techies. But like,
what's your take on that, Lloyd, on the whole job thing?
Yeah, and we're weird. So we hire everybody we have is in Alberta except for one person who's in Saskatchewan. Don't worry, I judge him for it frequently. So
okay. Not even Vancouver.
Yeah, just Alberta, and then yeah, one in Saskatchewan. It's Calgary, Edmonton, and Saskatchewan. But that's rare. Like Travis said, you got where we are, there's pressure from Seattle, Vancouver, and Montreal pulling talent out. And what'll end up happening 9 times out of 10 is you'll get a job at one of the studios there. They'll require you to move, and now you become a talent pool in Vancouver. That being said, if it gives somebody a job, I'm not going to complain because it's a path forward. The number of studios here is growing. The best advice I have is watch the market. So like CMF just did its recent funding round of prototyping, and now it's starting to get ready to do its next round of production. You want to network into those studios so that they put you on those grant applications, so that if they get the funding, you're more likely to go along with it. Best way to do that to me is game jams. Get in there and participate, meet people. We'll hire from game jams if we go in and see great talent that's getting, underappreciated. That's a great resource for us. Costs me nothing, and I get to see what they work like under pressure. But that being said, the number of studios here is, we could talk to like Interactive Arts or Alberta, and they'll give us a number of probably about maybe 150 or 200 studios. But when we're talking about over 1,000 and the big ones, they're not here. And so, and of that 100 studios, maybe 10 are hiring. So like, it just depends on timing. Right now, the timing's tough. You're competing with high-end talent for low dollars.
People,
but that changes. So and if you can get hired now, it's going to put you in a really good position when the market does bounce back. So, yeah. Provided you do good, maybe it won't be such a good experience. I don't know, but my heart goes out though. Like it's the hardest time ever. Like I tell students right now, there's so much pressure on them, and they're so alone in that hiring process. Like we have probably 7 schools that contact us for internships, and we're not that big. Like I can't fill one internship, let alone 7. And so um, it's just really, really hard for them to break through. So, and there's so much good talent. Like I wish we could, because I feel like we could probably hire
Now
everybody and find a way to make
we're
it
gonna
work.
lose them. That's what's gonna
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sad.
Or they'll end up in a job that they aren't as passionate about, and personal life comes
That's
into that
sad.
too.
Yeah, that's a
I
sad.
mean, it could be like Nova. So Nova was just telling me this afternoon that he's gonna start a podcast where tell us.
Yeah, yeah. I
The
was just
podcast where they talk about games and
I
chatting
like
with
podcasts.
yeah, like that's the extent of my technical skills. But like I was just telling Munmi that I was chatting with a friend, Nilufar, and she had a podcast. Like she was on Twitch, if I'm not wrong, and also YouTube. Actually, the her channel was monetized, so like game streaming and stuff. But that was back home, in Iran. No, I was just chatting to Nilufar, and then like let's find a passion together that we have lots of mutual stuff. Start something, a podcast or whatever, a newsletter, something,
Yeah.
and then just stick to it. Even though probably for a couple of years we're just gonna be spending out of pocket and we're not gonna gain any money from it, but at least it's our passion. And if it's our passion, we don't give up.
and
And
you want to be streaming games on it, right? That's what you said.
I like streaming games because I like
Mhm.
playing games, right? And then like after a couple of years, it might pay off, and then like we end up doing what we love and make a living out of it. So that's heaven. Like making money doing what you like. That's brilliant.
Awesome.
Mm.
And
Yeah, like
that,
go ahead.
I was gonna say that's how I see modern art these days. It's just interactive
Mhm.
art, and artists are
Mhm.
always poor, so that's how it goes. You
No,
accept
let's
that life
change that.
in exchange for doing creative work, and
Mhm.
it's nice to be able to switch that. I've never found a way, but that doesn't mean it can't be done. I think to me, like I've had high paid, high value jobs where I wasn't happy. This way, at least every day, I get to do something that's like, fun and different and interesting and challenging and exciting and that you're looking forward to. And
So like to this point, like I'm just imagining the audience. I like I have a vision that is very strong. I'm just imagining the audience right now. That let's say
Mhm.
someone in the audience was just wondering, oh, I want to break into gaming industry. Now that I have heard all of this, oh no, I'm not gonna do this. This is like a tough job market. Like even the students in Alberta are struggling. So like I don't want to send out that message because that's not health. Like I don't know. I don't want to stop people from pursuing their passions because like at the end of the day, as I said, I believe like the show must go on and you should keep pushing. Like,
Mhm.
but just to put a positive light on this matter, like if someone
Mhm.
wants to pivot into tech or game industry, like what would be a higher in demand right now, like so they can put more focus on that. I know that gaming has lots of aspects. It's just not like
Mhm.
a
Yeah.
3D artist. Like they there is music, there is a storyline, there is like graphics, there is like programming, there is AI, there is logic. Oh, I mentioned
Yeah.
AI. We can talk about AI.
And I think like if you look at a smaller studio like ours, roles are going to primarily break out into 3, which is business, development, and design. You got
Mhm.
your artists, your animators, your 3D animators. Somewhere like Red Iron, they're going to work on 10 projects in a week because we're just crazy like that. It's not for everybody because if you're an engineering focused person who likes long duration projects,
Mhm.
VR studios, which tend to get smaller projects that you're going to work on more frequently, might not be a fit. But for us, the art can be lumped together. So usually you'll start learning one art form and kind of explore into the others. We need more in small studios, you need more generalists. And then once you're to the bigger
Mhm.
studios, that's where you've had some time to sizzle and learn about what you love doing and really maximize that. And if you want to be a multiplayer specialist who really understands authoritative servers, because that's what you got excited about, now when you start applying into bigger studios, you have a very clear, here's where I belong, which can make it a little bit easier to get in. But like if you approach a small studio with that, they're going to go, don't need that. I need somebody who can do multiplayer. I don't need this one
Mhm.
specific thing. And so your career kind of changes and flows, I think, a little bit, I would imagine, with companies. I'll
It's
let Travis speak to his side because it's probably different than mine.
I've said this before to people, but gaming and the gaming industry is an oxymoron of itself. It is the biggest industry, and there's so many people out there, but it's also the smallest industry, and everybody knows everybody. And it is very true for those roles where you almost can't really plan on what's in need because it changes one so fast. For example, AI is the hot thing nowadays, and being able to kind of harness that and utilize AI power is what a lot of people are looking for. But if you have no desire to do that, I wouldn't waste your time, right? If you are an engineer or you're a designer, it doesn't really matter the discipline. Focus on that first and foremost, and exactly what Lloyd said. The longer you stay in the industry, the more you're going to realize what you do like and also what you don't like. And at that point, you'll find a home wherever that is the best fit for you. And again, unfortunately, a lot of people are without a home at the moment, so the competition is very, very tough.
Yeah.
And it's nothing that you can control. You could look at a job list and say, hey, there's several thousand engineering job opens. I'm going to become an engineer. But that still may not help you in the long run. Could get you a position, who knows? But we're talking about a career. We're not just talking about what your paycheck is going to be for the next year or two.
Totally. And for you, Travis, did you have how much domain knowledge, how much gaming domain industry experience does someone need to be a business developer in gaming?
Yeah, this is a weird one and maybe shock some people. I know a lot of business development people out there, specifically within games, that don't play games, and they may not even have an interest to play games. It's a weird role within the industry. Myself, for example, like I joined Snowden last year. I came into the industry with zero innate knowledge of the gaming industry. I'm a gamer through and through, and I love playing games, so I had a big passion and that I always wanted to join the industry. But I was still able to be effective in my role without that innate tribal knowledge of what the gaming industry is. Now that I've been in here for a year and I kind of know where to go, who to talk to, all the kind of the lay of the land per se, it obviously does help my my position and my role, but I wouldn't look at that for a limiting factor specifically within business development, because like I mentioned before, business is a fairly universal language. If you can drum up revenue for a SaaS company, you're probably along the right lines to do it for a small studio or just any studio.
Yeah, sure.
Did-
Somebody was touching on AI earlier. And what's that looking like? What is AI doing to this whole thing we've been talking about? What's changing?
Everything and nothing. It's probably the best way I can put it for AI. It's something that a lot of people are interested in. There's clear limitations of it, and there's potential, absolutely. It gets overblown in terms of the hype, in terms of maybe what it can and cannot do at the moment. It's going to be impossible to predict where it goes. I'm not in the business of predicting the future, and I'm kind of strapped along for the ride, just like everybody else, to see what happens. But as much as it takes away from the boring stuff I don't want to do, I'm okay with that. As long as, once again, people aren't losing paid positions and paid roles, which I think is like what 95% of people out there support in terms of keeping people working, because we need an income.
Yeah, in terms of the solutions that are actually being built, the kind of software or games. So how is Lloyd? I think this one is for you. How is AI impacting? Like, is it increasing the creativity? Is it helping with some complex designs and ideas to bring to market? How are you leveraging?
And it's such a complex topic. If you ask a developer and you ask an artist, you ask a business person, you'll get three very different answers.
Sure.
I think the biggest thing that pops up often is the question around ethics. The thing is, almost all the AI can be home trained on your own art or on your own stuff. And we're now seeing artists at studios training the AI on their specific art so that it's, which is very fascinating to me because then it's creating art that looks like yours to help you on your process, which is empowering the artist in a way, which isn't bad. But it also is taking jobs away from artists. It is taking away jobs from low budget overseas voiceover artists for sure. Things like that. So it's unfair to say it hasn't had an impact. I think it has had a measurable one. I think that from a business perspective, for people, I can't imagine what a granting board must go through these days because every proposal coming through is exactly the number of words on the
The
limit.
same way.
Like, and we use it for grant proposals, right? Like, the last thing you want to do is write 100,000 words on why something's important. It's like it's important because it's important. Just give us the funding. But they're probably using AI on their side to deconstruct it. And I think the important part is to remember it's a tool that the other side of the table is using. So if you know that, CMF is going to run your proposal through AI, run your own proposal through AI and ask it the insights and say, how close do I match the criteria on this? Because chances are that's what the funding board's going to do.
That's what they're going to do
You can use the tools to your advantage. And then for us, like the only practical example we really have would probably be stuff we're doing in the stroke space for speech therapy. Letting somebody practice natural conversations with AI to practice speaking again when they've had a stroke. That's valuable to me. And it's probably one of the best ethical ones that I can think of that we've been able to approach with AI. Especially because then if they get embarrassed, they're not talking to people, like there's a whole bunch of stuff that you go through with a stroke. And so that we are seeing innovation coming out that's opening new doors. But we're also seeing the other side where somebody's generating all the art with AI, which looks kind of wonky, all the 3D models with AI, which is kind of wonky, the code, which kind of doesn't work, and then a story which doesn't make sense. And then they launch it and they say, we've made the first AI game. And it's like, you're not the first. I don't think it's a game. But it's like anything, if you don't have somebody validating the content. And I think you need to learn how to use it as a tool. I think people who are completely refusing to use AI, I get where they're coming from, but they're going to lose work. So
exactly,
you got to adapt whether you want to or not.
So it's the person that understands the status quo, how it's done, and how AI can improve it that will survive the storm.
Yeah, and it's so
just people
Yeah, and it's so good at giving you the average. Like if you want the idea of what the average person is going to think of your game, it'll probably give you really good advice. If you want to know what a RPG thinker is going to think of your game, it's probably not going to be so accurate. But for generalized information, it's fantastic. And then you got to rely on your own intuition and knowledge to decide how much of that you keep.
Yeah,
it has its space. There's a long way of saying it has its space.
Yes, totally. And it's touching everything.
So I have some, let me see. I like to share a screen if that's okay. So are you seeing Canada video gaming industry?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this data is like 821 active video game studios in Canada. And here the graphics, I guess, okay. Total studios in Alberta is 68 and 810 employees. And I'm just comparing the numbers like, okay, British Columbia is higher, Ontario is higher, Quebec is definitely higher. Only Prairies and Atlantic as a lower number, right? And then there is a table here. I guess we have a bigger one here. Yeah. Okay, maybe I should zoom in on this one.
Yeah, I mean, you can share this link in the chat. Might be a good source of information for people to.
Yeah, like I'm just thinking about like this solo people, like people who are doing this solo in Alberta, the number is 15. Micro is 36. Very small is like this. And then like what was interesting for me was the changes in the numbers. Like between 21 and 24, like solo people are have increased like 36%, and large companies like 2 times, like they have grown 2 times, and medium has actually decreased. So it's also interesting. And then here is a number like 5.1 billion to Canada's GPD is the contribution of video game industry. And then people can also find other numbers like salaries. And I'm going to share this link in the comments later.
Yeah, please do. This is cool.
And I'll share another one with you as well. The Entertainment Software Association, they do a well-funded research every other year. And one of the things I found most fascinating for them is most years, the number of female gamers is either 51 or 49%. When you assume it's a male-driven industry, it's actually
Right.
in Canada, almost 50-50 for people consuming the content. Which answers the question of where's there an opportunity for content, so that's very fascinating to me.
Yeah, I also have a question for Travis, like business development wise.
1 second. So if people in the audience have questions, you have a chance to ask, and put it in the chat, or after Nova's next question, you can unmute yourself and ask as well.
Yeah.
Only people on Zoom though. So people that are on LinkedIn and YouTube, sorry, we're not monitoring that right now.
So okay, I'm not on mute, right? Okay. So how do you scale a gaming? What happens there?
That is, like I said before, the $1 million question. Scaling is obviously hard. Scaling comes to a point where you need resources, and typically what that means is you need money, whether it's investment, whether it's revenue through the door. Really doesn't matter how you're getting it, but you need that coming through the door. What we're seeing a lot of studios doing now, not just in Alberta, but kind of all over the place the last number of years, if they've worked on their own game and their own IP, they're now kind of having to force part of their studio into work for hire or for co-development, just to kind of stabilize the studio and help pay the bills and help revenue through the door. That is one method that studios nowadays can use moving forward. You don't have to be just hey, we're going to work on our own stuff only. You could have a very niche skill set of people that you could place them for work for hire contracts or co-development and have stable revenue coming through the door, which obviously helps. And especially helps in today's environment where there's less funding going around, right? There's less publishers putting money in. There's less just investors in general, because like what Lloyd said, they're risk adverse. They don't know what they're going to get back. So of course they want to hold on to their money and make a smart investment. So it really comes down to that, and trying to get as much resources through the door as you absolutely possibly can. And this also includes the right people at the studios. If you feel like you're not making headway in your engineering or your coding or design, just getting the right resource through the door is going to help you succeed. If you are a studio head and you are the creative director, the lead producer, and all these different hats, and you're running a studio of 10 to 15, 20 people, you probably don't have too much on your plate. So it comes down to who can you bring in for resources? What can you offload? What can you delegate? And make sure that whatever you're doing, it is your best work that is going to propel the studio forward at the same time. So really comes down to resources.
Awesome.
So like, if someone like Lloyd wanted to hire everyone in Alberta, like all the graduates, so that comes back to the funding that he gets, like the money that comes in, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a possibility. There's I don't want to say it's not in the works, but
yeah, let me ask this question another way. Is there any special project that you're cooking behind the scenes that you're just waiting for money to come in and then hire everyone?
Oh yeah, always. One that I can speak of, and I've been talking to 3 post-secondaries about it. I think we're going to approach OSIF for it, is to create an intermediary between school and getting your first job where you're only allowed to work a maximum of 1 year. It's low pay, but giving the intern that first 1 year project at a company where they're working with a team. The hard part we're trying to figure out is the mentorship
Mhm.
because you can't hire just 10 interns. They need to have somebody to mentor with. Um, but we are looking at putting together an incubator of some sort in that regard so that they have a 6 month or a 1 year contract. Because right now we have 7 schools punching out students and 6 studios on the other side. Like it's,
Mhm.
and those 6
Mhm.
studios have on average 8 people. Like the number of hires to the number of trainees doesn't line up. And so we're setting them up for failure right from the onset.
Right.
So that's my dream project, but we'll see. That involves me writing a grant, and so we'll see.
Oh, yeah, like maybe you should talk to Wunmi because like Wunmi like Pathway Pro from reskill category is not
Mm.
not necessarily the same, but something similar. Like
Yeah.
yeah, like this is you're talking about giving them a Canadian experience, right? It's not necessarily making a game.
Oh no,
Or
they'd be working on games.
And
Yeah, it'd be a,
yeah,
school
of course,
experience,
but
right?
like that, like the main goal is getting them Canadian experience, and on the side
yes.
they're
Not
also making some
Canadian, not Canadian,
Alberta, Alberta.
like industry.
Industry. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Like they'd have mentors leading the program of what they're going to
Mhm.
create. It would be a
Mhm.
smaller game, probably but something that has enough a $50,000 or $60,000 marketing budget. You know, like something reasonable that's
Mhm.
small enough to
Mhm.
get them confidence and you know. And if it does well enough, then maybe it can survive off its proceeds. Yeah.
So what do you think it would take for investors to see the value in gaming?
What
Because if we
we've
have schools, if we're
yeah.
investing in the education, why are we not investing in the education of investors?
Yeah, and there's kind of 2 parts to that. I think one is we need the champion. So we need somebody who's willing to take that first bite and invest in something, get paid off really well for it, who's part of the
Mhm.
A100, goes back to
Mhm.
the A100 reports, hey, you know. And we have people in the A100, which is the Alberta one, people who have money. And there are people in there, but they come from old gaming, like Flash era, or like, you know, and the lessons that they had 15 years ago doesn't really apply the same today. Budgets are different, the tools are different, how people play games is different. Um, so we do need that champion. And then I think the second part is what we've shown with Calgary, anyways, is they're going to build it whether they're funded or not. Um, and so we do need more concrete titles coming out from Alberta, from Calgary on their own 2 feet. And I always say the same thing to students, which is if you can't get hired, build your own studio. Go make something, launch it, learn that whole process, what you're going to learn from managing social media, managing
Mhm.
that launch, seeing the things you suck at, and seeing the things you're good at. Now you know where you would fit in at a studio, and you're going to have a much better conversation during that interview process. But at the end of the day, you could gamble on yourself
Mhm.
if funds permit. You still need to pay rent somehow, so they won't
Yeah.
take an IOU very often.
Interesting. So
Mhm.
I went to post the links that you sent on the chat to on LinkedIn, so I
Oh,
don't miss it.
perfect.
And I also
I
saw a
think Travis
share.
was gonna say something.
Oh yeah,
I was
okay.
just going to say something really quick. I might have a hot take on that in the sense that when I talk about investors, I'm talking about sizable check amounts, probably a few million plus, is they may need to reset their expectations in terms of the sense that if they're putting larger money in, I'd rather have them put less money in, but have a more refined expectation of what the project or studio is going to deliver. We don't need an $800 million game to come out of the gates, unless you're GTA 6. They're kind of an outlier on their own side, but we don't need an $800 million game to flop, right? It's a lot better to take that 800 million and divide it up and make smaller investments, smaller rounds, more people a chance,
Yeah.
and kind of reset the expectations where you don't need the 10x or 100x your investment. Like it's very much a numbers game in the sense that
Right.
more you bank on more people and you give more people a chance. It's a lot better than one project 800 million that you're putting all your eggs into the basket with.
Yeah, that's super valid.
Yeah, I was
With
saying,
2 minutes to go, is there anyone here?
yeah, I just
Nova, is that
yeah.
you?
No, I saw
Oh,
a
okay.
comment on LinkedIn. I just wanted to answer this.
Oh,
I just wanted to answer the
okay.
comment. Yes, let's do it together. Why dream? Like, if like fundraising for nonprofits for doing gaming events, that's exactly what like Lloyd is going like
Mhm.
pointing toward. Like yes, of course. However, we can help the Alberta space. That, that we can do that, of course.
I would always say and tell people to dream big. It's good to have realistic expectations and know that hey, it may not work out. But at the same time, when it comes to games, there's so many smart people in this industry, and you'd be surprised, especially if you're not seeing the inner workings of games, how many games get released where they probably shouldn't have, and it just took an insane amount of effort and brain power to get it across the line or figure out these technical challenges. So in order to push our industry further, we're going to have to dream big and still think big and still kind of swing for the fences. It's as much as I talk about maybe, diversifying and kind of talk about these small projects, we should still
Mhm.
be challenging and pushing ourselves and dreaming as much as we possibly can with a realistic expectation that, hey, it's not all pie in the sky.
And I will say we have 3 or 4 times done some kind of gaming event for fundraising for nonprofits. So
Yeah, I
Muffin
was going to
Fight
say
when we
maybe that's exactly what we need to be doing,
yeah,
right?
because
Maybe
like
it's this kind of things that we need to do more of, not less.
yeah, because like Muffin Fight, we donated all of those profits to several different nonprofits. So so it is very you need to find a company willing to do it. But yeah, it's totally reasonable.
Mhm.
Mhm. Well, perfect. Thank you. We're on time, 7 p.m.
Any question, any burning comments?
I didn't see any to
No?
put up right now, at least. I didn't check YouTube.
Hi, Wunmi. So I just want to know, so I'm Sujita here. So I don't have any idea about gaming. So if I see any job description regarding my position for my role as a QA, so I just used to skip because I don't have the domain knowledge and I don't have any idea regarding about how my role fits into gaming industries. And because it's more about graphics and virtual reality and a mixture of those things. So, may I know about the significance of a QA in the gaming side, gaming domain? So, do you have a QA over for the gaming, or you just develop and you'll be using the user experience, or will be within your community? The people who develops will be testing the gaming part,
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
Yeah, that might be a better question for Travis. We're pretty small, so we do all our QA internally,
okay.
but it's very I could say it's very important, but and it can be very boring because but yeah, usually we're in a different relationship because if we're doing a client service, the client's doing a big chunk of the QA, so we do a validation before we hand it over, so our QA is much smaller.
Okay.
QA is extremely important from so many different aspects. It's making sure that you're releasing something good at the end of the day, right? It's quality. And if you come from a QA background and you move into a different discipline, such as development, design, doesn't really matter. Having the foundation of QA is going to go so much further because you're going to be able to get in front of problems and in front of things that could go wrong before they actually do. And you can save yourself a lot of time and you can save studios a lot of money. QA is very much an entry level position for a lot of people, and it's which works great because it's the foundational stuff that you need that really helps you in your career. I've met so many fantastic people in the industry where they're wicked smart and they started in QA, and I see their path that they're taking, whether it's a producer or development. And it really comes down to them understanding their role in QA and then branching that out to whatever is interesting to them.
So true.
Okay. Yeah, got it. Thank you. I got an idea.
Yeah, I mean, we want to respect everyone's time. I'm sure Lloyd and Travis are open to questions on LinkedIn. I'm volunteering them for that. If anybody has further questions, right? You guys
And
are
I don't mind
okay?
questions.
Up to you on LinkedIn? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for being here. Thanks for spending time here with us this Wednesday evening.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Yeah.
having us.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I mean,
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Perfect.
All right, have
Yeah.
fun.
Great evening.
Yes.